Nostalgia can be an interesting thing. It helps bind us to the things of our past, creating a personal attachment and helps create memories. I'm no stranger to the feeling. I hold many things of my childhood very near and dear to me, despite many of their flaws. Yes, sadly, nothing is perfect, and as time goes on, the things we once loved and cherished as kids can start to show some outdated designs to them as we grow up. What if there was an exception to the rule? Metroid, a franchise dating all the way back to 1986, a cult classic to many, is the exception for me. I never grew up with the original game. Bear in mind that I wouldn't start playing video games seriously until the 5th generation of gaming. My first hands-on experience with video games was found on the PlayStation, around the time when 3D was new and exciting. It certainly didn't help that I didn't even know what a Metroid was. It wouldn't be until the mid-2000s that I'd finally give the series a shot, and I didn't like it. Which pains me to say, because it wasn't the game's fault. Metroid, at its core, is all about exploration and backtracking. At my age, this concept was foreign to me, and hard to wrap my head around. The games I had grown up with were more simplistic, with simple A to B level design and only the occasional branching paths. To ask of a small child to have the attention span, let alone the dedication to comb the nooks and crannies of these vast worlds, was admittedly a bit much for me to grasp. So, I shelved the series for many years, only ever knowing the characters Samus Aran for their presence in Smash Bros. But what changed? A little console. You might have heard of it. It's called the Nintendo Wii. The Wii was a wonderful console that came out at just the right point in my life. It helped balance casual and hardcore games on its platform, and thanks to its virtual console, I was able to experience games I never got to play before. Games from before my time. And I got to re-experience games of the past, and give them a second glance. It was thanks to this platform that I was able to truly give Metroid a fair shot. One of the first virtual console titles I downloaded was the original Metroid on NES. What did I have to say about the game? I didn't like it still. Though that didn't stop me this time. I refused to give up on the series just because one game didn't hook me, and I'm glad I didn't, because if I had, I never would have gotten to see the series for what it truly is, and come to appreciate it and respect Nintendo for the risks they took. Now here we are, 35 years later, giving the game another look, so I can see if this game is a diamond in the rough, or a relic best left in the past. This is Metroid on NES. In the year 2000 of the history of the cosmos, representatives from the many different planets in the galaxy established a congress called the Galactic Federation, and an age of prosperity began. A successful exchange of cultures and civilizations resulted, and thousands of interstellar spaceships ferried back and forth between planets, but space pirates also appeared to attack the spaceships. The Federation Bureau created the Galactic Federation Police, but the pirates' attacks were powerful, and it was not easy to catch them in the vastness of space. The Federation Bureau and the Federation Police called together warriors known for their great courage and sent them to do battle with the pirates. These great warriors were called Space Hunters. They received large rewards when they captured pirates and made their living as space bounty hunters. It is now the year 20x5 of the history of the cosmos, and something terrible has happened. Space pirates have attacked a research spaceship and seized a capsule containing an unknown life form that had just been discovered on the planet SR-388. This life form is in a state of suspended animation, but can be reactivated and will multiply when exposed to beta rays for 24 hours. It is suspected that the entire civilization of planet SR-388 was destroyed by some unknown person or thing, and there is a strong possibility that the life form just discovered was the cause of the planet's destruction. To carelessly let it multiply would be extremely dangerous. The Federation researchers had named it Metroid, and were bringing it back to Earth, when it was stolen by the space pirates. If the Metroid is multiplied by the space pirates, and then used as a weapon, the entire galactic civilization will be destroyed. After a desperate search, the Federation police have at last found the pirates' headquarters, the fortress planet Zebes, and launched a general attack. But the pirates' resistance is strong, and the police have been unable to take the planet. Meanwhile, in a room hidden deep within the center of the fortress, the preparations of multiplying the Metroid are progressing steadily. As a last resort, the Federation police have decided on a strategy: to send a space hunter to penetrate the center of the fortress and destroy Mother Brain. The space hunter chosen for this mission is Samus Aran. He is the greatest of all the space hunters and has successfully completed numerous missions that everybody thought were absolutely impossible. He is a cyborg. His entire body has been surgically strengthened with robotics, giving him superpowers. Even the space pirates fear his spacesuit, which can absorb any enemy's power. But his true form is shrouded in mystery. The planet Zebes is a natural fortress. Its sides are covered with a special kind of stone, and its interior is a complicated maze. On top of that, the pirates have planted devices and booby traps in the maze, and the pirates' eerie followers lie in wait around every corner. Samus has now succeeded in penetrating Zebes, but time is running out. Will he be able to destroy the Metroids and save the galaxy? Alright, let's address the elephant in the room. It's no secret that gamers of these days are all too aware that Samus is a woman. The 80s were a different time. Female protagonists are already hard to come by these days, but back then it was far harder to sell a game if the protagonist wasn't male. The manual uses male pronouns when referring to Samus in order to keep up the charade, but the most skillful players who can beat the game as fast as possible are rewarded with the shocking twist that you've spent the last few hours playing as a woman. I love this twist. I wasn't able to experience it myself thanks to Smash Bros. And later games in the series, but I can appreciate what it was for its time. It's because Samus defied expectations of the time that she's such a beloved character today. But we've harped on enough about the story. Let's get into the real meat of it all, the game itself. You begin by being planted in the middle of a room with two branching pathways. If you go right, you'll eventually find yourself in a room that you can't access the bottom floor of. What sets Metroid apart from other games of its time is how even here, it defies the norm of gaming by making the player go left. Going left will present the player with their first power-up, the Morph Ball. This allows Samus to curl up into a ball and roll under small crevices, previously inaccessible to her. After crossing over a few rooms, you're met with your first vertical shaft. It's here where you'll get a feel of Samus's controls. For her first outing, Samus is surprisingly limited in what she can do. She can only aim in 3 directions, above her and to her sides. You'll quickly notice how short her beam attack is as well, as you must upgrade it to be able to shoot further. A baffling decision. She can run and jump, but you'll also notice how stiff this feels. Samus's jump has 2 modes, a standard hop and a spin jump. The stiffness of her jumps can make platforming on narrow platforms especially difficult. Where Metroid's difficulty really struggles is your health and defense. Starting out, Samus only has 30 health. Your health can go up to 99, but every time you start the game, you're at 30 and must gather resources to refill it. What baffles me even more is that this also applies anytime you die. Let's say you've been playing for 15 minutes. You've combed your way through the hallways and shafts of the starting area of Brintstar. You've got a few power-ups, like missiles and the ice beam. Then, you get knocked into one of the game's notorious traps. You're dead. You have to start back at the very beginning of the area, but to rub salt in the wound, you're back down to 30 health. So now, on top of having to claw your way back to where you died, you also have to grind health drops from enemies. This is a problem the entire game has, and Samus's stiff movement, combined with the lack of a map, is just bad design. Sadly, this design was the norm back then. Just take a look at the manual. This is your map, it reads proudly to you. Games of this era expected you to create your own map. Heck, the manual suggests that too. This is the issue that kept me, as well as many other players, from being able to really get this game. Metroid is a game about trial and error, a game about learning your locations and documenting it on a map. Your goal is to defeat 2 bosses, Kraid and Ridley, before unlocking the final area, Torian, and facing off with the leader of the Space Pirates, Mother Brain. Each boss has their own area that you must explore, while also building up Samus's arsenal. There are many power-ups scattered across the planet Zebes that you'll want to find if you want to stand a chance against the Big Bad 3. Missile tanks are by far the most important. Every tank gives you an additional 5 missiles. These act as a stronger version of your attack and are required to open red doors, which take a whopping 5 missiles each to open. There are also energy tanks that increase Samus's health by another 99 units, and are just as important as your missiles if you want to stand a chance against the game's enemies. Samus can also be equipped with one of 2 different beams. The trade-off is that she can only carry one at a time, the previously mentioned long beam being the exception. First is the wave beam, which goes across the screen in an arc. It's stronger than your standard beam and can travel through solid walls, making it ideal for taking out enemies that stand in your way. The second beam is the ice beam, which is required to finish the game. It freezes enemies on the spot, making them usable as platforms to stand on, or to simply stop them in their tracks from following you. The trade-off is that it takes twice as long to kill enemies. The other remaining powers are the high jump, allowing Samus to reach ledges she previously could not, and the screw attack, an attack so popular it became Samus's defining logo in Smash Bros, and even some of the game's logos. This power allows Samus's jump to become an attack and tears through enemies. It's especially helpful for those platforming sections over acid pits. The Morph Ball can also be equipped with bombs. You can drop 3 on the ground at a time to kill enemies, break walls, or give yourself a boost in the air. Samus can also get an upgrade for her suit, called the Varia suit. It increases her defense and changes her colors. The suit would come to have a secondary use down the line in sequels. Along the way, you'll find yourself grappling with the aforementioned Kraid and Ridley. These two are nothing to write home about. While Ridley is certainly harder than Kraid, the two barely pose much of a challenge, as their attacks are hardly a threat, especially if you've gone out of your way to get the upgrades. Simply pump them full of bombs or missiles, and they'll eventually go down. The real trouble comes when you reach the final area, Torian. It's here where you're met with the titular characters, the Metroids. These jellyfish-looking creatures are the sole purpose for the ice beam. The only way to defeat them is to freeze them and shoot them with 5 missiles. If you're not on your toes, they can swarm you and deplete your health in seconds. They'll latch onto you, so your only means of getting them off of you is to drop bombs on the floor. After you fight your way past them and these annoying secret rings, you're faced with the leader of them all, Mother Brain. This boss is awful. She herself is no threat, she just sits there in her glass tank and takes every hit without a counterattack. No, her only means of attack are from the lasers and rings behind you that seek you and knock you into the lava pit, making it extremely hard to get out. Though after a few dozen missiles, Mother Brain finally goes down, but not without a parting gift. She sets off a self-destruct and you're tasked with platforming up a narrow shaft to reach the top. Once you reach the top, the game is over and you've finished Metroid. I know I've harped on this game a lot, but there are things about it that I like a considerable amount. Metroid was the debut of some of my favorite tunes in all of gaming. Being able to capture such amazing melodies through the simplistic tunes of the 8-bit era was something marvelous of Metroid. From the adventurous beginnings of Brinstar, to the bombastic Kraid Slayer, this soundtrack is one full of atmosphere and charm. The visuals too are quite nice for the most part. There's a surprising amount of detail in the enemy sprites, bosses included. Where the graphics fall short are the backgrounds and room layouts. One of the biggest reasons it's so easy to get lost in this game is due to the lack of identity each room has. The black backgrounds and similar tiles make it hard to distinguish room from room. I'm also not too fond of Samus' sprite either. Something about it looks more like a blob than a person. And those weird 2 pixels on the back around the butt are just, I don't know. And don't even get me started on that awkward walk cycle. What am I looking at? Thankfully, there is a ROM hack that addresses this exact issue, and then some. Metroid Mother is a ROM hack of the original game that spruces up the visuals. It doesn't fix the 3-directional shooting or the stiff controls, but definitely gives the game a much more pleasing art direction. It even includes a map and a proper save system based off of the Japanese release. We over here in the West were stuck with a password screen, but not just any password screen, this. Yeah, it was a different time. If you're going to play the original Metroid, this hack is the way to go. It doesn't save the game from its other issues, but it makes for a much better experience and definitely more comfy. At least for now. A link to download the hack will be provided below in the description for those who want to try it out. At the end of the day, Metroid on NES is simply put a flawed experience, one that I find difficult to come back to. I'm not biased towards the game due to nostalgia. Between the stiff controls, the lack of a map, unfair difficulty, including enemies attacking you while you're moving through doors, and a plethora of other decisions, it just isn't as easy for me to get into. But that's okay. The original Metroid is not a game for me, and that's okay. I wasn't there to appreciate it at the time, I can only look back on it and admire what it stands for. The foundation of what the rest of the franchise would become. Without this game, we wouldn't have the many sequels that followed suit. And as if on cue, a miracle happened. During the conception of this season, I was planning on it being a celebration of the series' 35th anniversary. However, this has become something far grander. A brand new 2D Metroid game was announced. A game following the events of the last game in the timeline, Metroid Dread. I plan to cover the first 5 2D Metroid games this season, but if we reach our Patreon goal for the season, I'll be taking a look at Metroid Dread as well. Next week, we'll be taking a look at the first handheld Metroid game, an often overlooked game, Metroid II: Return of Samus. For just $1, you can watch the episode right now. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Take care.